All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, as we look at our physical characteristics of the region we're currently in, of North Africa and Southwest Asia, or it's commonly referred to as the Middle East, we first want to start and recognize how unique this particular area is, in that it is the intersection of three of the major continents in the world. Those continents being Europe, Asia, and Africa. And for that reason, the countries in this particular region all have a really rich tradition of history, of exchange of ideas and cultural traditions, because it is a very well traveled and well traversed region. It has had many empires, it has had many conquerors come through, it's had the situations of many changing of powers and changing of what was dominant religion or what was not. And so this particular region is kind of interesting because it is the maybe a summation of many different cultures kind of coming together, and the impact of that can be seen throughout it. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the economics and cultural region. However, it's also very diverse in terms of so it's somewhat diverse in terms of the climate regions. It is overall a very dry region. We talked about in our unit here as we start down in Africa about this Sahel, this semi-dry region that is essentially growing due to overuse for farming methods. Here we have the largest hot desert in the world in the Sahara. And then as we move even into the Southwest Asia part, a lot of this area is going to be dry as well. In the upper part, we do have some steppe. We do have some of that light grassland that is useful for grazing and for herding. Maybe not so much for big time agriculture and big time farming. In here we have semi-desert. Now a lot of this area is salvageable because of the rivers that run through it, those being the Tigris and the Euphrates and the Jordan. And then at the bottom here, this is going to be primarily all desert region down here in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. And so overall, a pretty dry region, and which is why a lot of people think the most valuable resource is oil. But in reality, probably the most valuable resource is actually water, and the access to water. Now, as we look at specific physical features that kind of are unique to the region, we first want to start with straits. And we know a strait is a thin, narrow body of water that connects two other bodies of water. And in the country of Turkey, they actually have two straits that are controlled by their city. If you haven't had a chance to label this on your map, this might be a good time to get that out and make sure you have that labeled. Turkey is going to be in the upper left-hand corner of your map, or what we might call the northwest corner of your map. And the two straits that we want to be familiar with are first the Bosporus. Okay, the Bosporus Strait connects the Black Sea to this little Sea of Marmara, excuse me. And once you get a chance to write in the Bosporus Strait, make sure you also write it in on the right-hand side that this strait is straddled by the city of Istanbul. So if I could take my red dot, I know it gets kind of distracting, and place it right here on this line, that's where the city of Istanbul is located. Now, Istanbul used to be called Constantinople. For many years, that was a Christian city of Constantinople. It was later taken by Muslim invaders and renamed Istanbul as Turkey became a part of the Ottoman Empire. Now, if you then go on the Black Sea, if you're this little ship, if you're this dot, and you travel through the Bosporus Strait into the sea, you still need to go through a second strait in order to get out to the Aegean Sea and then to the Mediterranean. And that strait is called the Dardanelles. And the Dardanelles Strait, as I mentioned, connects the Sea of Marmara with the Aegean Sea. So these two straits combined give Turkey quite a lot of leverage and quite a lot of power when it comes to controlling trade. Because if you're a country that has access to the Black Sea, the only way you can get your goods out through shipping is to essentially pay a tax and come out through these two straits that are controlled by Turkey. And that brings in a lot of revenue for them. That is a huge region that Turkey is one of the countries with a higher GDP in this entire region. So two Turkish straits. The Bosporus is the one in the most northern part. You can hardly even see it. And then the Dardanelles is going to be the more southern strait. All right, so go ahead and flip your page over and let's go ahead and look at some other important rivers and waterways that we want to be familiar with. I'm going to give them to you on the map. and then I'm going to have you write the important information down on the graph as we go along. So if you can start on the right-hand side, the third and final strait of our unit is called the Strait of Hormuz. Go ahead and write that in on your map. And then I'm going to jump down to the graph below you. And on the left-hand side, you want to write in the actual name. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you're going to write in the Strait of Hormuz. And the Strait of Hormuz is located between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Gulf. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is probably one of the most important bodies of water in this particular region because 1/3 of the world's traded oil supplies passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That's a lot of money, folks. And that is why these countries, the UAE and Qatar and Kuwait up here in this corner, who have access to that, are going to be some of the richest countries in the world. Remember, the UAE's GDP is about $128,000 per year. They live, those two cities of Dubai and Abu Dhabi are going to be some very wealthy, westernized cities. And that means that this strait is a point of conflict and tension between many countries. And it has had many times where ships were attacked or ships were destroyed as a result of the potential conflict there, because 1/3 of the world's oil supply is no joke. If we lost 1/3 of the world's oil supply, or if there was a problem where this strait was no longer accessible, that would have a huge impact on the American economy. Our gas would go up, and it would be very impactful on our daily lives. All right. Next on our list, we're going to jump over here, is the Suez Canal. Okay, so go ahead and write that in up there on your map. And then down on your graph, you want to write that in again. And the Suez Canal is located between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. The Suez Canal is particularly important as it shortens the trip from Europe to countries in southern Asia. So rather than going around the entire tip of Africa, you can cut through the Suez Canal. And I had a great question in another class, do countries try to avoid the Suez Canal because they have to pay a fee or a tax? And the answer to that would really be no, because even the tax that they pay to go through the Suez Canal would be cheaper than having to take all the time and money and gas, essentially, to go all the way around the tip of Africa. It costs them weeks to do that, to go around Africa. This way you can cut weeks off your travel time and deliver your products sooner to the countries you're trying to trade with. All right, so then next on our list is going to be the Nile River. If you're having trouble finding any of these, just raise your hand and the substitute today can stop the video so you can catch up with those. You then want to write the Nile River down on your graph, and we have seen the Nile River before in our South Africa unit, and that just tells you how long the actual Nile River is. It's located between East Africa and the Mediterranean Sea, or at least it starts in East Africa and then runs to the Mediterranean. Remember, the Nile is not only the world's longest river, but it essentially makes a very uninhabitable region inhabitable. It starts, if anybody can remember from our unit, the Nile River actually begins in Lake Victoria, which is down in Tanzania, and then runs north all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea and allows for major cities like Khartoum in Sudan and then Cairo in Egypt to exist in a otherwise very dry area. Next on our list is here in the middle. This is going to be the Tigris River. The Tigris River starts in Turkey but runs through Iraq. It is located from the Turkish mountains in the north, what we would call the Taurus Mountains, and ends in the Persian Gulf. So again, it's going to start up here in Turkey and make its way all the way down. The majority of it is in Iraq. That's going to be the biggest part of the river. It is navigable by smaller boats. It's not a major shipping route, though, because of kind of where it starts. It has some limited navigability. It doesn't connect to another body of water. But for people in Iraq, they are able to ship some of these pieces there. Some of the points are a little bit more shallow than probably what they would like, and so bigger boats aren't going to do as well, but small boats can navigate down at certain parts. And it gives life to a region that otherwise would not have it. The Tigris and the Euphrates River not only provide people with drinking water, but when these rivers flood, at certain points, they actually provide what are called alluvial soils to the region, so they can farm and get some actual agricultural products out of that. And then, if we just wrote in the Tigris, the little brother to the Tigris is the Euphrates. And the Euphrates River and the Tigris River are often paired together because what's important about these two rivers is the in-between. Okay, all this area in between the Tigris and the Euphrates becomes very fertile throughout the year due to the flooding and then the soils that they leave behind. So that's very important for them. And then finally, if you just want to write in here at the very top, this is not going to be in your test or in your SOL, but another important river, particularly in the Bible, is the Jordan River. And the Jordan River is located on the west side of Jordan and the east side of Palestine. So to end here today, just go ahead and write in where the Euphrates River is located between the Turkish mountains and the Persian Gulf. It's actually the same description as the Tigris. And then that will be all for today. And you guys are going to begin working on your group projects for the remainder of class. All right.